To further explore the topic of body and identity, I am going to analyze Paola Paredes' photography project titled Unveiled, and how it relates to the broad themes of both self-portraits and imprisonment. I argue that through her work, Paola employs photography to juxtapose the commonly fabricated nature of self-portraits with the inherently intimate quality of coming out, in order to denounce the constraints that her context prescribes to her body and sexuality, and consequently to her identity. Paola Paredes is a 29-year-old Ecuadorian artist based in London. She grew up in Quito with her two sisters, her mother, and her father. In 2015, she decided to photograph the 3-hour-long conversation in which she came out to her parents. In the weeks before the occasion, Paola did everything under her control to ensure that the quality of the pictures was exactly as she envisioned them. She spent 3 weeks photographing her parents during their daily activities to make them feel comfortable in the presence of cameras. She hired a carpenter to make the perfect table to fit the room dimensions and kept a journal where she planned every component, from lighting to the position of the cameras to the photography intervals. The final result portrays this attention to detail, as can be seen in the direct lighting, sharp focus, and center framing of the pictures. Paola's work was inspired by the creations of other lesbian photographers. In her own words, "I had been incredibly touched by personal stories, photographers who turned the camera onto themselves. I knew I wanted to do something similar." The decision to turn the camera on herself during this unpredictable moment symbolizes a transgression in the very core of this art form, parallel to the transgression to the social norms depicted in the scene itself. Self-portraits have historically been an artist's possibility of manufacturing their own identity, of showing to the world a crafted image of themselves. One can observe a twofold significance in the adoption of this medium. First, there is a dissonance between the supervised general nature of a portrait and the inability of the artist to control her parents' reaction to the message. Second, choosing to present herself in this way speaks to the artist's process of self-acceptance of her identity, culminating in the desire of making it public. The project acquires a deeper significance by understanding what public implies in Paola's context. She explains, "Only 18 years ago, homosexual encounters were still illegal, and prior to a constitutional change in 1997, sexual activity between same-sex couples was punishable with up to 8 years in prison. Even now, with legal protection and a more enlightened younger generation, the influence of the previous generation is still a force in Ecuador. Many young men and women are kicked out of their homes when their families discover they are gay." Paola had no way of knowing what the reaction of her parents would be, increasing the previously mentioned dissonance between the carefully designed aspect of self-portraits. 80% of Ecuadorians are Catholic, a religion that still condemns homosexual behavior. Paola recounts events in which her family had expressed negative views towards the issue, as well as church Sunday lectures that denounce same-sex relationships. Awareness of the cultural and social background is vital to comprehend how social norms can act as cages for self-expression. Paola herself mentions how her sexuality was part of her identity from a very young age. She explains, "These feelings were at odds with what I was being taught about gender roles and how we were meant to interact with each other. As children, we were programmed to subscribe to the limitations of gender, little boys to be the strong ones, and little girls to play dress-up and be nice." Paola's art embodies a liberation from the social and cultural norms on gender and sexuality. They reflect the coming together of a body and an identity that have been at odds for years, finally ceasing to be a restriction to become a release, a channel for self-ratification and existence. Paola's story has a happy ending. She narrates the moment immediately after giving the notice to her parents. "And then, through the blur, voices reached out to me. 'We don't care, we love you.' My mom and dad broke their stillness as one. Their tears matched my own. Their hands reached for mine." Paola also acknowledges how art encouraged her to speak in what became one of the most significant moments of her life. "I had never had any intention to come out before. I was convinced I probably would have never done it. But the idea of capturing it in photographs made it all of a sudden appealing. I like storytelling, and I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to tell one. That really gave me the push I needed." This is an example of how art can be a driver for social change at an individual scale. In addition, Paola hopes that her project will also have an impact at a social scale. She affirms, "If Unveil can help even one person come out of the closet, then I will have achieved my goal." Thank you for listening.